Rama at Shambhala. Hail to thee, O mighty one from out the sun. Hail to thee, angelic hosts, and Virgo and Pellor, and all who dwell in earth's domain. From out the radiance of our star, Venus, from afar we come, and shed our radiance from the sun to raise you up and make you one, and let you know that we are one, forevermore the light to reign. Uncrowned right now, but then again you shall receive upon your brow the holy flame to which we vow, and long ago did pledge our troth, and by the power of divine thought brought forth his light, sustained so bright, that has kept the earth and shall remain forever conscious of God's flame. Won't you please be seated, blessed ones? I bear with me the mighty tidings of love to all from the heart of the gracious Lady Venus, and I bear with me the greetings of your own beloved Jesus, who on this day did come to us on Venus and remains with us still, that he might generate together with us a greater radiance sent forth to the earth to remove the dust and the stain from human consciousness, which mankind yearn to see brought about. Great waves of purity then are sent forth, and it is our heart's desire to see this purity intensified, that the refining fires may try the souls of men until they come once again to their own perfection, and understand that this is their greatest protection, the might and power needed now this hour, which must come to full flaming glory, bright orbed in splendor, and bedecked with the power of the ascended host. Mankind, in all of their desire for ornamentation, cannot possibly express a greater beauty than in the sacred jewels of the heart, which are worn by those initiates who to the present hour walk the earth unknown by any. For forsooth man still, when they behold them, think they see but a mortal garb, and know not that they stand in the face of purity's ray. Well, precious ones, there is no fence or barrier erected between your God perfection and your present status, which God would not remove. But the question yet remains, when will you summon enough love that you can remove that barrier? Know ye not that all barriers must be removed by the power of the human will, demanding from the Father above the mighty power that will make all things right? It is not enough, precious ones, to merely yearn for perfection, for the yearnings of the world are so mighty throughout the ages that they are enough, if yearnings alone would have performed it, to have freed 10,000 planets like unto this, and yet they have not alone produced perfection, for the mighty will related to the power of God expressed in the blue sky is necessary, and men must summon this power, the power of divine will, within the white fire core of their being. And as they summon this power, it must become rigid like blue steel, and it must cause them not to flinch as they come face to face with human recalcitrance. Your beloved Moria, a man of some stature in Darjeeling, has often expressed to you concerning the thoughts of his own heart, and you are aware how that a thrust for a purpose, as he has so ably expressed it, must be accomplished. And yet sometimes you feel, precious ones, in your outer consciousness as though you were a jellyfish, one without a spine. Well, let me tell you, I am using this illustration because it is very appropriate, and mankind ought to recognize that the will of God is that they should have backbone. And I tell you, precious ones, the very fact that you have one denotes that it is intended to be used, and to keep your spines erect, pointed toward heaven, that you may draw from heaven above a greater radiance to sustain your physical forms here, anchoring you then in the consciousness of the light which alone can produce your perfection. Precious ones of the light, do you suppose for 1 minute that mankind in their human consciousness can engineer a pathway to God? Do you think that all of the scientific knowledge of the world could tear away one veil from the human heart? Blessed ones, all spiritual accomplishment then must be accomplished by the power of devotion harnessed to the holy will of God, anchored in the human heart. When this will, summoned by mankind, even as they summon faith, invokes from the heart of God a greater portion of its own substance, it comes to pass that the weakest of men stand then unto the Lord as rods of power. Do you know that a great deal has been made of the mighty rod of power which I wield? Do you know, precious ones, that in one sense your own spinal column can be compared to this rod of power? Do you know that your own heads can be filled with the wisdom of God, which I bear? Do you know that God has not distinguished one individual and said, you can come so high, and to another, you can come no higher? He has made it possible for all to climb the ladder to the stars, but many do not realize it. Neither do many realize that a number of different life ways and evolutions still occupy the planetary platform. And therefore this morning, that I may bring some measure of comfort to those of you who have at times lamented the lack of progress in the world, and the fact that in attempting to contact individuals throughout the world, you have sometimes met with rebuffs, and your hearts have become at times downcast. Let me tell you that the time has come when we are going to back all of the students of the light as never before in their service to the holy cause. Let me tell you, precious ones, that the time has come when we are determined to take the energy from those who have not used it or correctly, or those who have misused it, and give it to those who have used it correctly. At first this may appear to be a hard saying, but I tell you it is necessary, for among the various students of different activities throughout the world devoted to the sacred cause, many of them have continually sought to use the power of God for gain. Many of them have sought to glorify their human personality and have misused the very holy energies which have been given to them. To tell you the truth, precious ones, and remove the veil of illusion from your consciousness, there are some of them who actually do not believe in the Godhead as reality, but ponder as to whether or not the universe is not some form of scientific maze, whereby they may seek in their own way to probe the intricacies of that maze and extract the scientific theories out of it which will enable them to turn the magic key in the lock and seize for themselves power. So little have they understood the Godhead, although some of them are endowed with reasonable human intelligence, that it is almost difficult to understand from the level of heaven as to just how to give them assistance until they shall bump up against the thorns of life and come to the realization that they are on the wrong road. Then, at that point, when they shall turn, recognizing their own error, and ask for assistance, we shall stand ready to give it. For many a year now, we have held out our hand so that heaven has been almost in the position of a beggar, saying to mankind, take it, it is yours, use it. This is because of the infinite compassion of the great white brotherhood, the radiant Christ love, which we have epitomized and desired to externalize in the student's own heart, so that they might be able to give this self-same love to others. Now, we are not advocating any change in your own concepts toward humanity. Neither are we advocating that you become, as it were, hard and insensitive to the pleas of mankind. We simply do not want you bruised by the crushing experiences which come to mankind when they offer the priceless jewels of heaven to mankind, only to have them spurned, while individuals prefer to carry about their own business and turn their backs upon the mighty light of God as it rushes forth to bring them untold and priceless treasures from on high. Therefore, the action that shall occur in the future as a result of my fiat this day is one that shall probe and search the hearts of men, determining then those individuals who may be trusted with the power that has been given them, and determining those that may not be trusted in this embodiment. Therefore, the energy that shall be taken from those who do not properly use their talents shall be given to those who have, and the fulfillment of that word, to him that hath shall more be given, and to him that hath not shall be taken away, even that which he hath shall be brought about. And there shall be darkness and gnashing of teeth when mankind come to realize that they have lost the priceless treasure which they would not give to the heart of God and would not offer unto their fellow men in loving service and understanding, in grace and humility, in a desire to glorify the presence of God rather than the puny ego which men wear. Precious ones, I cannot bring you this day any greater measure of light than to bring you the truth of the ascended Jesus Christ consciousness. The ascended Jesus Christ consciousness, which enabled him to resurrect himself from the grave, as it were, and yet I am certain you realize that there were many of us who assisted, was a direct result of the inner activity of his being, which humbled itself before God and gave full dominion to the mighty power of the God flame that is within. Do you realize, precious ones, that each one of you have this treasure, a mighty God flame that is within you now, that is not separated from the mighty God flame in the great central sun, that is not truly separated from your own holy Christ self and the holy Christ flame, that is not separated from your own mighty I am presence. It is to this flame that you ought to pay allegiance, for no spatial time continuum can in any way separate man by height or depth, or by width, or by any other means, or even by any other creature. For the love of God, which was manifest in the ascended Master Jesus, is the self-same love that shall bathe the world and cleanse the world and purify the world for the incoming golden age. But so long as there remains rampant in mankind a spirit of hypocrisy and impatience, a spirit of distrust and suspicion, a spirit of doubt and fear, temerity, jealousy, and a host of other negative qualities, it cannot be expected that the human race will manifest the fullness of the divine intent. Only by shedding these qualities and cleansing the electronic belt of light that surrounds the spinal column can mankind destroy and negate the forms that are stubborn human creation, recalcitrance and density surrounding them and causing an action of calcination which actually results in a termination of their life flame, so that they cannot endure for as many years as the patriarchs of old and live in one physical body, but must relinquish it much sooner. And the cause of all disease is manifest then in this density and this calcination, which stops the flow and dams up the vital currents within the physical body and the brain. Precious ones, there are many harmful habits which mankind have in this present generation, which were not utilized in the past, although some of them were. Some of these habits cause mankind to have a tremendous density in their consciousness, so that they cannot break through. Do you understand that which I am speaking to you this morning? Well, I will explain it so that all may. The mighty God flame that is within you desires to unite with your holy Christ self and God flame in your individualized I am presence. But your individualized I am presence finds no difficulty whatsoever in uniting with a mighty I am presence in the great central sun, and therefore all life can become one, and the power and benefits of the universe are at the command of the individual, so disposed and so directed and so perfected as to be able to penetrate the cosmic densities with his own God flame. Therefore, you see, precious ones, in order to do this, you must be able to part the veil of matter and substance, also the veil of mind, presided over by the lords of mind. You must be able to move aside the veil then, not only from your physical form at will, but to move aside the veils from your own mind. And then, precious ones, one of the last veils that you will tear away, of course, in fact there are two, is the great emotional veil, and then the etheric veil, which is the veil of memory. You see, precious ones, when all of these veils can be consciously separated and parted by you, then the great and mighty veil that hangs in the temple of your being between the holy place where God is, the secret place of the Most High, and the individualized light flame separates, and the Ark of the Covenant can be seen within your own being. There you see the covering cherubim and the Shekinah glory, and there streams forth from you the radiance within the microcosm to unite with the radiance in the macrocosm. And so by the interchange of cosmic power, the finite monad through the initiatic process becomes the mighty God flame in action everywhere. Then there blazes forth mighty victory's power, and the radiance of light upon the forehead of man is seen. The cosmic glow, the star of infinite power, the radiance of initiation, which Jesus manifested, so that those that are in the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear will live. Galvanation will occur, and the dry bones in the valley of indecision will be raised up and clothed with a new flesh, and the power of righteousness and understanding and a right mind, and clean white linen shall be given to them, for they are worthy and pure, having dipped themselves in the consciousness and life of the immortal Son of God, their own holy Christ self, the only begotten of the Father. There cannot be another. For I say unto you that each of you have a portion of that one, and when you come into unity, it is the communion of spirit and the communion of soul, and it is the mighty power that is within the broken body of God, the immortal substance which is given to each man in a specific portion, and the mighty tide of the wine that came down from on high, the new wine, is given to all, shown then as the power of the Spirit to take its dominion over the flesh, that it may tremble as a leaf before the mighty wind that rushes in from on high, purifying then the physical body temple of man, and causing it to disgorge itself from all of the densities, opacities, rocky strata of substance, discord and human slime. Yes, precious ones, I shall say it, for it is truth, and nothing but truth. And it is this that the Christ Spirit would deliver the earth from, until it rises from the swamplands and is able to blossom as the lotus. Do you know, precious ones, how the lotus flower blossoms in the swamp, and how its radiance seems to carry a certain white glow? Well, this is a precious manifestation of the Buddhic consciousness, which cups itself open to receive the great light of God. And in one sense of the word, it is illustrative of that which is intended to stand upon the neck bone of man. The neck bone of man, expanded as it were, cupped as a flower, until the thousand-petaled lotus of light may flood forth its intensity and its mighty action flame through the brain and through the substance of man, showing to mankind the full content of the mind of God. Then the great Buddhic light, rushing forth from the brain upon the stalk of the spine, blazes forth in all a star of victory, and the golden stamen in the center is endowed with so much wisdom that that one is set apart, destined to become a part of God's own heart consciousness and victor over all outer conditions. Such a one then becomes in this infinite and expanding universe perhaps a Kohan of a ray, perhaps a planetary guardian, or a guardian spirit, in some cases even a missionary to the elementals, to bring to them a greater blessing. But whatever the task that is given to man, it is a task where he no longer abides in the density of the flesh form, but is able to come and go at will, as a will-o'-the-wisp, you see, a mighty light, but saturated not with the finite power, as it were, of a will-o'-the-wisp, but with the mighty power of the will o' God. The will of God, precious ones, which goes forth into the human heart and causes mankind to be able to rise at will and bounce as a great ball of light far into the atmosphere and then settle upon the planetary body at the exact point in space where light is needed, conferring then upon all mankind a greater blessing. Do you see, precious ones, that as I view the earth now from the Venusian atmosphere and behold the globe, it appears to me as though it were somewhat porous, and I see certain spots upon the earth which resemble coal and tarry substance. There is absolutely no light whatever in certain areas of the land, because human density has fastened itself upon those areas with intense viciousness and locked around about it an intense action of negation. Other parts are emitting tremendous light, and much of the world is emitting a beautiful glow of spiritual aspiration. This aspiration, of course, must be translated through intelligent effort into a service of the ascended host. Now, some individuals have a very nebulous concept concerning the great white brotherhood and the initiatic process. Let me tell you, precious ones, that the initiatic process is scientific and accurate and exact. You cannot trifle with God, dear hearts. You cannot trifle with him, for his spirit shall not always strive with those who do, but shall withdraw itself and leave the grass to wither in the blast of human density. For this density of mankind was a density drawn from the God flame, and then through misqualification it was created, strata upon strata. And it has some activity of light in it, and it is this light that is imprisoned within it which gives it its power to enslave mankind. And therefore this light that is within dense substance must be set free, and the power of God to glow in the body temple must be sustained. Each cell must be purified. Each portion of your world must be cleansed. What value is it, precious hearts, if mankind are to walk about as a vegetable or as a tree, simply to live, simply to go through the process of photosynthesis and then ultimately die? Is it not intended that immortal life be bestowed upon man? Could it be conceived that God himself, in his great wisdom and intense love for his creation, would desire to create a form and then break it and cast it down into the earth that it might receive it, dust to dust? I tell you, nay, for it is life that God is, and it is this life that God is that men must have, and must hold dear. But so long as they sustain the activity of the sinister force and the activity of hate and human discord and viciousness, they are indeed the children of Mammon. And they who are the children of Mammon must manifest the densities that are a part of Mammon. They who are children of the light must manifest the radiance that is the Christ purity of God, the holiness and compassion that breathes out understanding to those who have transgressed and breathes out understanding to those who seek to find the path eternal. Precious ones, it is a strange thing indeed to those of us ascended, and yet I am sure to those embodied in various crystallized states of consciousness that it is quite natural. But their entire world centers around their own individualized ego, their own family, and for this reason the word went forth from the Christ long ago to mankind, saying, "Whosoever doeth the will of God, the same is my mother and my father and my brothers and my sisters." The word also went forth, precious ones, instructing them that those who would not forsake father, mother, sisters and brothers, and wife, and family, and friends for the sake of the light was not worthy of the light. Let me tell you, precious ones, either you are a child of God and a child of the light, and will fit into Saint Germain's vanguard for the new age, and be an instrument in the hand of God, or you will be an instrument in the hand of the world. You cannot serve two masters and do it well. You cannot serve the light of God and still find yourself tied to human density. I do not expect that you are all going to blossom out into Buddhas instantly, but I do expect a more than reasonable service. I do expect a more than reasonable offering. I do not expect just a reasonable offering which mankind themselves give. Do you know, precious ones, that throughout the world they of every faith are making sacrifices on behalf of the work itself, that it may expand and be maintained. But I tell you, precious ones, that Saint Germain's light, which is blossoming everywhere in the hearts of men, requires the nourishment and expansion of those who have loved it enough to love it still more, that it may come forth and produce here such a culture of light that happiness will be spread abroad. Now, you cannot create happiness out of shadowed substance. You cannot take decaying substance and carnality and change that substance immediately into divinity. Precious ones, there are orderly steps of initiation and progress which are necessary in the transmutation of matter. And therefore I would like to tell you that the will of God must actually be generated within your bones in order to produce the manifestation of that which he intends. Now you may say to me, "Beloved Sanat Kumara, how can this be?" Remember, we are the lords of the flame. Remember that with me are the other lords of the flame from Venus. Remember that we have mastered the process. We know every step of the way. We are able to confer the process to you, but you must be ready to receive it. We do not intend to confer it upon those who will not love it more than their own life. We intend to confer it and the intricate mysteries thereof upon those whose devotion is exemplary and is excellent, and those who are willing to give the devotion which Saint Germain gave in a time when it was far more difficult than it is today. While it is true that you have many factors today that hinder your progress, you also have a great deal more light that has been given to you down through the ages, and you have recorded writings that are inspirational and helpful to your souls that you may read. You have ascended master dictations, and you have many other blessings whereby the light of God can be expanded and expanded and expanded until he can be glorified as the law intends that he shall be. Precious ones of the light, this is not a time for human nonsense. This is not a time for curiously delving into that which is but mystical according to man's own concepts, that which is mysterious and curious that men may say this individual is connected with some movement that is supposed to have great power. This is not a time for you to seek in this movement some special factor of glory for yourselves. This is a time for you to draw forth in your hearts the true glory of God, so that the light which you emit is the light of God and not the light of the human ego seeking to draw about itself those who would glorify its own outer identity. I tell you, beloved ones, the truth which I am speaking to you today is able to give you your freedom. But if I were to merely flatter you and tell you that you were the most magnificent people on the face of the earth, which in one sense is not far from true, I tell you that that alone would not serve to give you your freedom, for it is only by rightly appraising yourselves and recognizing the perspective that is required by the great law that you can draw forth the power from God's heart that will enable the world to find its freedom. Now here is a point that I wish to outline very carefully. Many of you in your hearts cherish the will of God with such devotion that I know you would give your own life gladly if you thought by so doing you could bring in the kingdom of God to its fullness upon earth. But, precious ones, you must take into account the many factors of the great law that govern this manifestation of the kingdom of God. You must realize what you can do and those limitations that are imposed upon you. You see, precious ones, the will of man is still sacred in the eyes of God, and you cannot violate human will. If this could have been done, we would long ago have transformed this earth into a paradise of beauty and perfection and happiness. We would long ago have removed the need for operations and illness from mankind. We would long ago have removed the sting of death or the necessity for it from the world. And we would have created the most glorious pattern ever conceivable in the mind of God for you. You see, precious ones, we have been given as lords of the flame the power to create and evolve in His name, utilizing the mighty impersonal powers of life, wonderful treasures of light, and to bestow it upon the children of light. St. Paul long ago wrote of this, saying that the eye had not seen, nor the ear heard, neither had entered into the heart of man the things which God had prepared for those who love Him. And this is the truth to the present hour. Now, precious ones, in the Gobi Desert, where the wonderful retreat known as Shambhala radiantly shines forth its light to the whole earth, the Christ has appeared, having descended on a ray of light from our planet. And with Him are the other holy Kumaras, come to grace the earth this day. I shall descend at the close of this address and join them for a holy ceremony at Shambhala. Later this afternoon, we shall accompany Jesus as He comes to you in this place, and our radiance shall intensify the Christ light of all. But in the meantime, I desired to impart to you some of the action that was taking place there in Shambhala, that your hearts might rejoice and that you might be glad and feel the sense of happiness that floods the kingdom of heaven. Above all things, I pray that those of you who have the power of perception may be blessed with an expanded perception. I pray that those of you yet lacking in the power of spiritual perception will humble yourselves completely before your own God presence, so that that presence may so lovingly confer upon you the fullness of himself, that in the coming days, the welding together of the spiritual body upon the planet, knitting together the visible and invisible parts of the creation, will begin in earnest as it has never begun before. For all that has been in the past with all of its glory is prologue to the salvation of man. For the world itself in its consciousness is not ready to receive all of the blessings which heaven has in store for it. Therefore, we must of necessity come to you. We must bring this light to those who are able to receive it. We cannot bring it to those who are not ready. How in the name of heaven, precious ones, if we stand with a gift in our hand, and the gift be spurned, would the great law permit us to continually say, take this blessing? It would be a blot upon the universe to require the sons of heaven and lords of the flame to stand forever offering light to man, and have man turn their back indifferently upon the light. And therefore this is the reason for human density today, because in past ages, when great beings were embodied here and carried to the masses of people the coals from the fires of heaven's own altar, and breathed upon the people the sweet essence of life, they preferred to turn their attention upon the chariot races of the world and become immersed in the densities of human creation. And so civilization fell, and in its fall created a series of peaks, rising and falling as cycles in the descent unto the present day, when the scientific powers of Atlantis have been released again to mankind in the span of a few short years, and therefore new inventions have sprung forth upon the screen of life. But the greatest invention of all, the mighty creative mind of God, the mind that is able to show men how to find their freedom, to show men how to permeate their bones with the holy will, until each bone of their body blazes with blue flame substance. The power to show men how to open their pores, and then, drawing in the fresh oxygen, fan the flame of life within their heart, until the lungs, like a giant bellows, cause the flame to leap up, and the clay vessel of the human form becomes golden, roseate light, and all of the tarry substance vanishes in that flame, bit by bit, the tendrils of flame flowing from the ankles, up through the legs, up the spinal column, through the internal organs, through the arms, out through the head, flooding forth as coals of fire from the eye. And then the rainbow hues, the changes of the rays passing through the form, until the 7 colors having been breached, and all having passed, the vibratory action turning to the white hot heat of the great radiance of the Christ. This denotes that the untransmuted substance will shortly become ash, for it cannot abide in this white radiance. And so all of the pores open, and all of the centers open to the light, and the flame blazes through the form as a mighty furnace. With a great roar, it consumes the human dross, and suddenly a lightness takes over the form. The resurrection flame begins now to merge with the ascension flame, the form with all of its lightness, rising up from the hilltop, passes into the atmosphere, and that which was is no longer visible. Enoch, who walked with God and was not, for God took him, is the forerunner of many a similar drama. The glory of the ascension follows the glory of the resurrection. Otherwise, the Master would have remained beyond the 40 days and have remained visible to the whole world to the present day, to teach and to heal and to bless. But in his present form, his power is magnified as is our own. And where he might raise one sick child from the dead, today he can raise millions at a touch. His power is magnified and not confined to this planetary body, but can serve the universal need wherever it may be. You are preparing for a great destiny. We do not need that timber which is not willing. We do not need those individuals who desire to spurn us. They need the light. And when they find out that the light must be invoked, they will turn to the light in due course of time, and then they will seek the light diligently. And it shall come to pass that the light for a moment shall seem to conceal itself behind every bush and tree and substance, and they shall wonder where the light has gone. But this is as it should be, for then they must learn the lesson that the pursuit of happiness and life and light must spring forth spontaneously from a heart that has faith. Remember the faith of Abraham, who believed that God was, and that God was a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. I know Abraham. I know Isaac. And I know Jacob. And I know every patriarch. We have clasped our arms about one another, and in bodies of fire have exchanged the one flame. But we never cease to marvel whenever we meet at the joy that comes to us as we pass our arms around one another. It is with joy, it is with fervor. Here below, the apartness of mankind is a disgrace to the holy image of God. The self-seeking, self-effacing unrighteousness of man. It has concealed rather than revealed the truth. I have come today to tell you that a decision has been made on high, that we shall no longer pursue those who do not pursue God. We shall turn our full attention upon the children of the light and seek to get them out of this condition here. This is not abandoning the earth. It is bringing the light to the spots upon earth where the light is loved. And this is a decision that has been made on high, and it fulfills the prediction which was long ago made, that God should not always strive with flesh. And therefore the time has come. And in this service I say it is done. The light of God must be sought by men, and it shall respond to them then when they have sought it with their heart. And the rest shall find themselves apart in outer darkness until they are ready to serve the light. Lament them not. Opportunities have been given to all. I see before me the great cosmic record, and it reveals here and now, I shall tell you, that there is not a person upon this planet that has not had at least 5,000 opportunities to serve the great light. Many have had 1,000,000. It is our just opinion, then, that God's cause will be better served by explaining to mankind the love and the purity and the power and the grace of God, but telling them that it is not God's plan to impose that grace upon them, but it is their responsibility to seek that grace. In the name of the risen Christ, and in the hope of the self-same resurrection for you and for every part of life upon earth, I return to my beloved consort, the Lady Master Venus, and I shall shortly be in Shambhala, and my light shall pour to the earth this day, together with Lord Buddha's, that all may revel who will in the flame of the Infinite One, the Holy One, who loveth and abideth forever in the temple where he is received and is the beloved flame. As the Lord of the flame, I say, honor God's name forevermore. It is your passport through all worlds. For when you come to the portal and the unnamed name is asked of you, and you say, I am, it is not the mere saying of I am that passes you through the portal. It is the being of I am, and then the saying thereof, that passes you through the portal. With a smile of his light, I leave you now in the white radiance of his shining. Thank you. Gracious children of the light, won't you please be seated? On a tide of great light, I am come this night to honor the holy and just cause which God in his infinite mercy has manifested as the messianic mission of every man. In the name of holy justice, then, I say, through the year, beginning with the period just after your celebration of the Christ Mass, there is a constant release of the radiance of the Christ consciousness. This Christ consciousness is the holy justice of God. exposed before the world as truth. Christ truth is the truth of the light, and the light of God, which does not fail, manifests throughout the entire solar logos and universal consciousness. As the passions of men rise and fall like a tiny barometer affected by the finite matters of the world, they seem to go contrary to the cause of holy justice, for human justice is often completely contrary to divine justice. You may ask yourself why this is so, for it is recorded in your scriptures that there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, and the end thereof is death. Yet ye, in your own hearts, precious ones, are aware of the fact that God espouses the cause of life. You are aware that in the breathing reality of your present state of consciousness, you can gaze out from your forms upon the universe as though you were the center of it. And behold, as my beloved consort has said, all the world's a stage, and each man in his time plays many parts. Ye have played many parts, some very well and commendable, approved of yourself, your finite self, and approved and applauded by your divine being. Other parts were not played out so well. The lines were forgotten, and the drama was poorly acted, and the part was wholly wrong. This is the judgment, then, which can be classed as negative karma, so necessary to balance in order to bring about the righting of every wrong. You know, precious hearts, let me tell you, mankind sometimes have a sense of justice in themselves that seems to feel that the universal law is unjust. This, I assure you, is only because mankind have not been able to see all of the angles which are so clearly visible to our eyes. And in this partial sight, seeing through a glass darkly and dimly, it seemeth to them as though the cosmic law may function at times in an unjust manner. It is not the will of heaven to chide mankind for errors and mistakes of judgment. We are not temperamental, as mankind sometimes are. We do not vacillate in the performance of our services, for we are anchored and posited in the mighty light tide of the Infinite One. Our every thought and idea centers around the drawing into the Christ radiance of all of you who for so long within have been dedicated to the holy cause of manifesting the Christ. Deep within your consciousness, very deep in some cases, the God flame holds such holy visions for your life stream. And it is these holy visions that sometimes, because they are repressed and pushed backward, that are the pressure which releases from your subconscious mind some visions that are unholy and impure. You see, blessed one, the mind of man is dual, and the great mind of God within is sometimes pushed into the background, and the human person, usurping the rightful authority of the divine self, begins to take in through the avenue of the senses an abundance of human discord. This discord piled up layer upon layer, with many images which are frightening, creates a pattern for those particular dream episodes which you term a nightmare. And truly, a nightmare it sometimes is, for it comes galloping across your consciousness and threatens to upset the equilibrium of your being. This is unneedful, for if you will remind yourself that the very repression of the holy light of God by mankind is responsible, because it dams up the flow, for the release of the negative aspects which are stored in the human consciousness, you will understand that the God solution is submission to the holy will of God. In this manner, do you know, dear hearts, that some individuals are actually frightened of coming too closely in contact with God? Now this is somewhat strange, but yet understandable. For God, although He would be every inch a father to all mankind, is not always so familiar a figure from His invisible to the human sense state of consciousness. Mankind are able to perceive their physical mothers and feel their arms wrapped tightly about them from the earliest stages of babyhood. But when a human being who fully believes that he is indeed matured and in full possession of his faculties and good senses, accustomed to a certain religious service or concept over a period of years, is suddenly brought into contact with the realm of the ascended masters and is taught the reality of their own mighty I Am God presence, it is a most startling revelation. And for a moment, it is as though the human would recoil from its own source and seek to hide its head away from the greater light. This is ever so unnecessary, for no one, by coming in contact with God, will ever be consumed because of the factors governing the manifestation of God. You will recall, however, the constant use of the Christ of statements similar to this: "Be not afraid, for it is I. Be of good cheer, for I am come. It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." And similar statements. Many of these wondrous anecdotes concerning the life of Jesus, in all of their pristine reality, vividly portrayed in the gospel expressions and the writers and early Christian sages, conveys to all of you, even to the present hour, some of the tender memories centering around the manifestation of the man Christ Jesus. Know then that Saint Germain and myself desire tonight to lay a laurel wreath upon the memory of this self-same Jesus, honoring Him, but honoring Him in accord with that which will please Him most. For in our conversations with Jesus of a recent date, He constantly reminded us of how little concern he felt for the worship and affections of men for his person, and how deeply concerned he was that they would activate the Christ principle of the resurrection flame within their own world, that they might, in finding emulation of his life as of paramount importance, bring into radiant outpicturing the self-same Christ powers that were resident within his form. O precious ones, his light has stretched across 2,000 years, according to the theologians of this century. But we know that his light has stretched across millions of light years in reality. For the light of the Christ is a drama far beyond the telling that mankind have ever heard. It concerns histories of long forgotten worlds and civilizations that were created in aeons now past. You know, precious ones, there is a certain blessing in a veil, and the veil of human consciousness, cloaking from man the true realities of the greater truths of God, has certain merciful aspects, and therefore ye need not fear concerning the fact that all truth is not revealed to you on the instant. For parcel by parcel, portion by portion, your own God presence is giving you greater wisdom. And as this wisdom mounts, so your consciousness mounts. Like the wings of a great eagle, you soar into the blueness of the will of God. It is as though you were enabled to look at a great azure blue sapphire and then plunge into the heart of the gem, beholding the crisscross light rays, scintillating fragments of the holy will, and understanding in the crossing of the lines of communication messages from every part of the universe, fragments of long forgotten history, and the blessing of that which is yet to be. Justice, precious ones, cannot be measured by human standards, and yet the Code of Hammurabi and the laws of Moses and the golden rule of the golden ages, the two commandments of the Christ, the Mayflower Compact, the lexicon of English law, and even your own American jurisprudence, has within it, inherently locked there, a sense of justice that does not, as in the Merchant of Venice, demand the pound of flesh from mankind, but exacts mercy and truth and justice. The world is filled at times with a strange sense that desires vengeance against other parts of life. And strange though it may seem to you, I will tell you that we find directed to us a constant stream of calls from various individuals upon the planet, crying out for the blood of other men and demanding that the law of God take their life. There are many people upon the planet who have actually called for the destruction of another. and thought that they did God's service when they made this call, they have so little understood the words of Jesus and the words of the great white brotherhood. Let him that is without sin first cast a stone upon her. Where are thine accusers? There are none. Then neither do I condemn thee. Go in peace and sin no more. The laws of God have one objective and one alone. And tomorrow, as your voice is raised to the tune of this song, One Alone, honoring then Sanat Kumara, remember that God's purposes are to make all wholly divine. If I could draw from your fables, I would choose tonight the one concerning Midas, but I would alter its structure. And I would make this Midas your own I am presence, and say that every light ray which your presence has ever shed forth to you and to the universe has desired to turn all into the gold of illumined action and pure Christ's blood. Your God presence has never thought of vengeance. Your God presence has never thought of destruction. Your God presence has never cherished the idea of harm. Your God presence has thought only in terms of constructive and loving action. All forms of witchcraft, all forms of variance, all forms of hatred, all vice and concentrated passions that do not bring forth peace are not the justice of God. They rob men of the divine radiance, and the price paid for the few moments of solitary pleasure is an ill price indeed when placed beside the holy rule that releases the immortal substance of life into the keeping of an individual. Many years before Jesus lived, there lived a certain prince whose heart was very heavy, for he had a great love for the people of his kingdom, and he could not quite understand as to how he would ever be able to unburden himself of this great love by doing enough for his subjects. And it came to pass that when he died, he was not mourned by so much as anyone in his palace or in his country, for they never knew his love or how hard he tried to reach them. After his passing, a group of individuals gathered together in a room and closeted themselves, discussing as to how they might remove his name from all of the monuments that were erected in his honor. They discussed as to how they might utterly blot out his memory from the mind of men. And an act was passed whereby it became iniquity to even speak his name. So rewarded then the people of his kingdom. Their king then passed for the love which he had borne them and which had troubled his heart day and night, searching as to how he might better serve their every need. But they knew it not, and in their blindness and lack of understanding, they sought to erase even his memory from the screen of life here. But in the eternal archive, the memory of that blessed one was inscribed. And he was given at another time and in another age an occasion whereby he could serve the holy cause of freedom. And it came to pass that when the time came for this nation itself to be born, that he was the first president thereof, your own George Washington. This incident has not been related in this manner before, and I would like to call to your attention that because of the manifold lives that have been lived by individuals, there are only a relatively few embodiments that are known and revealed in most cases. For there is always a danger in too much reflection upon the past, and not enough thought about the present and the future that is to come. And therefore, it is always our desire in the holy name of justice to expand the consciousness of men and women who live in the present day, and pour out the love that heaven has for mankind. Did you know that ere the blessed gentleman lifted the goblet high, leading you in your meditations this night, there came a flash of light, and the presence of Jesus stood here in the aisle, approximately in the center of this room. He walked toward the gentleman for a moment, and then vanished in a flash of light. Yet so few noted his arrival or his passing. But his blessing remains and is a part of the radiance which I am charging forth towards you tonight. There is an intense activity of love occurring tonight, but it is the love of the stillness of God. It is the love of justice that gathers a momentum in the manner of a spring that moves inward, preparing for a great leap outward. This involutionary action, which is being accomplished tonight, compresses the very life force within your blessed forms, dear heart, preparing you for the glorious expansion when the cosmic leap, starting with the penetration of the first golden shaft from the sun, brings forth the flame of resurrection to honor the risen Christ present. But of what value, dear hearts, would honor be extended to us of the heavenly host, all of us, including Jesus, if it would not incite you to greater compassion, to a greater sense of justice and fairness, to a greater devotion to the purity of your being? Of what value would it be to give to us gold and honor and substance, for we have all substance in our domain. We have but to speak, and a golden vessel appears before us. We have but to think a thought, and immediately it is externalized. If we desire transportation, we may move with the speed of light to any place in the universe, known or unknown. If we desire a chariot, a golden chariot is there at our command. Seeing then that we have no need ourselves for money or substance, you must understand that the use of all these commodities in the economic structure of your society must be dispensed according to the great law to serve the holy purposes of life, that the wheels of civilization may turn, oiled by the love of patient understanding. Precious ones, seeing we have then no need for even devotion, except it be that we may take your devotion and amplify it almost to incomprehensible rates of vibration, and then flood it forth to others upon the planet, to whom it is not given to hear these dictations or to have this understanding. Do you know, precious ones, that some of them are so steeped in orthodoxy and the concepts thereof that they would feel as though they had contaminated their souls forever to even cross the threshold which you passed through, not only tonight, but many times throughout this series of classes. Some of these individuals, of course, are receptive in their nature, and there are many people who are waiting the message that will enable them to also hear from heaven in this day and age and receive the progressive evolution of the ascended Master's teachings, which, pursuant to the divine plan to bring forth cosmic happiness to all, are the pleasures of God. For God would bestow upon you such richness of his mercy and compassion as the mind of man can scarce e'er dream of, even when in attunement with the angelic host. For all of the angels have not been given the opportunity to see that which the Father has prepared for you, many of them having foregone such pleasures that they may serve the evolution of this system of worlds. Precious ones, you do not know in your present state the tumult of divine love, the torrent of joy that is poured forth by the angelic host from day to day. You do not know how the angelic host sustain the tiny elementals as they prepare the matrices which will be the blueprint for each specific blossom and flower which mankind crushes so gently at times, and then again so rudely, casting aside when slightly soiled or fading, as though it were mere rubbish. And yet, this is understandable. Blessed ones, however, it is so essential that mankind ought to be more aware of the intricate service that is rendered them daily by the ascended and angelic host. Do you know why I am reminding you of this tonight? It is because as you attune with the angelic host and pour out your love to them, the love that they can give you in return is increased many times. For there is a subtle law acting here which demands that mankind must give that they may receive. And when you give love to God and the angelic hosts, although they may not need your love in the sense that they have God's, it means a greater increase of his strength to flow into your worlds and a subsequent, more speedy return into a state of Christ victory. Can you not then afford, blessed ones, to be magnanimous? Can you not afford to be great-hearted and to pour forth waves of such love to the angelic host daily that you will be raised on high into greater areas of service? Oh, the human mind is at times such a cesspool of diversion, seeking to entertain itself in many manners which stymie its own spiritual evolution. And yet, if people would only pull the drain plug of their human consciousness and let go of all the filth and silt and residue of untransmuted substance from their worlds, calling for its transmutation into light and God control, they would begin to know what it means to have a flow of the crystal clear river from the very throne of God into their world. Have you thought, precious ones, of the factor that this life stream, which so purely comes down, almost like Niagara, streaming into your life each hour, is God's priceless energy? This energy which beats your heart and sustains the action thereof over the period of the years is the tenderness of God's love. It is his fingers of light contacting your world, producing therein energy to burn. Yes, but let it not burn you in the return and recoil of negative karma and wrong thoughts released. Let it rather consume the dross that is within your world by calling for the lilies of Christ's purity to spring up in your consciousness. Are there not manifold and wonderful Christ-like thoughts that can occupy your mind 24 hours a day. Would you, precious ones, consider that in heaven it would be the will of God that you should think some of the thoughts that you think here on earth. I ask you then, in the name of holy justice, would it not be wise this night to make a vow within your own heart to dispense with some of these negative and somewhat nebulous patterns which you have created, and truly honor Saint Germain as the ladies of heaven would advocate that you would do? Would it not be wise, precious ones, to think of the mighty power of the spokesman of this karmic board, to honor the goddess of liberty with the power of her radiant sons, such as Paolo Veronese, your own beloved Paul the Venetian, beloved Jesus, and others who serve the cause of pure divine love? Why will ye tarry, precious ones, and, shall we say, in the vernacular of mankind today, dally, while your own souls are being weighed in the mighty cosmic balances? For this is true, and it is pure truth. Men do not escape the judgment a single day, for the judgment is with men forever. How could it be otherwise in the human octave? Seeing the karma-making machinery is ever active in the flow of the current drawn forth from God, which is energy, and seeing mankind are not fully God-illumined, does it not follow that they should make both good and bad karma daily? Then it is so necessary to purify the negative action of all that is bad karma. It is so wonderful to use the violet flame, precious hearts. Do you know, I am going to tell a little secret in a way upon this messenger through whom I am speaking, for although he has used the violet flame for a long time, in a period of years, tonight, as he stood here before you preparing to give this address and surrender his consciousness for the use of heaven, he felt a certain pressure that had been thrust upon him as a result of his stroll out of this room for a brief period, and desiring to see it cease so that he might be the most perfect instrument, he made a call for his tube of light and violet flame most powerfully just before I entered the room. And an amazing thing happened, for it was answered so instantaneously that he could tangibly feel the light's radiance of his own presence descend, and for a moment he thought that it was I. And it was quite confusing to him for a moment when I came into the room, because, you see, he thought that all of this descending radiance was my radiation, and it was the radiation of his own tube of light, do you see? Precious ones, this then should show you that all people, and all of you in this room, and all who have this instruction imparted to them, ought to recognize that you are always learning some new tactic, some new grace, whereby you may outpicture more of the uses of heaven's energy, even concerning the old and familiar aspects of that which you have already been taught. Will you then, recognizing your own divine opportunity, as you look forward from this portal into the new year, for, dear hearts, I hope that you realize that actually the new year does begin in the spring, you see, and not at the period observed by mankind. Therefore, I hope that as you gaze into this new year, the year of the spring, and the summer, and the fall, and the winter, that you will realize that all that is past, that is prologue, as El Morya so often says, can be changed into light. Do not permit hopelessness to occupy your mind. Keep your consciousness pure and just and wise and lovely and kind, and seek the fellowship occasionally. And I say this even to you gentlemen. Seek the fellowship occasionally of the ladies of heaven. We are not aloof to you because you are gentlemen. And certainly we are not aloof to the ladies who have poured out so much energy to us for so long. We love you both, and we love all people with a pure Christ love. We cannot be expected to love the negative tendencies and qualities which mankind use, casting out pebbles in the pathway of others. We cannot be expected to love misunderstanding. We cannot be expected to approve of discord and distress. But I would commend you in this class for the wonderful spirit of harmony that has pervaded this class from the opening night unto the present hour. And I do pray that in memory of dear Saint Germain, my consort and beloved friend of freedom, that you will permit that harmony, which is God's harmony in manifestation, to follow you through the year and all the years that are ahead. Whenever a moment of temptation comes to you, and there will no doubt be many, remember that your I am is always of good cheer and is nigh at hand to deliver you from temptation and evil, and to set your feet upon the path of righteousness for his name's sake, which I am, and for your name's sake, which is I am, and for my name's sake, which is I am. We are all, one and all, a part of that great God flame. It is true that there seems to be a division in the sense that men and women are individualized. But precious ones, would you divide the cells of your body and say that they are not a part of the whole? I think not. Surely you must realize then that there is an integrated action in the Christ body upon earth. If there be some men that insist on going contrary to the doctrines of the great white brotherhood, who desire to separate themselves into the sensuality of their own comprehensions, let them alone. But remember that your God self is in full command of your own life, and they have a God presence and a Holy Christ self. When you call then to their presence, the great shepherd of the sheep responds, and with his immaculate concept and guiding hand will direct them back to the path of righteousness and justice. I have spoken to you this night out of the quiet thoughts and reflections of my heart concerning the meaning of justice as it can be translated for all ages, but most specifically for this current age when mankind are immersed in so many forms of distractions, when the world is passing through so many crises, and when so much unhappiness requires the powers of transmutation's flame. Oh, precious ones, if you could feel the anguish of mankind and the pain and the distress that they are feeling in various parts of the world tonight, you would understand how that by the power of God's love we cannot refrain from making these appeals, because we know that you are the authority for your own world. And we also know that only by developing compassion for all will a doorway be opened up into this world where we can pour forth our assistance through the student body and out into the world where it is so badly needed. Supply then this need, O blessed hearts, and never admit the dragon of human discord into your consciousness. Do you notice, precious ones, the great feeling of harmony that penetrates the atmosphere through this class? Well, let me tell you, if you were to get up from your seats now and rush out somewhere and begin to discuss negative aspects of life, do you think that you would hold that harmony then? Do you think if you were to dwell upon all of the sin and shame of the world, or reflect upon all of your own inequities that have been blotted out by the hand of God in the past, you would be actually furthering the cause of divine grace? I think not. Then in the name of holy justice and mercy, I make a plea that each one of you tonight will forgive yourselves for those hard feelings that you sometimes feel as a result of your meanderings away from the path that is straight, when you have momentarily faltered on the way, and in your wavering have committed acts which you deem ill-advised and improper. Remember, precious ones, that when the fullness of your Christ victory is given to you, it will be because you have profited from your errors and mistakes, and have arisen out of a sea of trouble, to be crowned with achievement in a more than ordinary manner. Angelic beings, created out of the pure love flame of God's heart, who have never fallen into a state where they are given free will to do as they please, are not therefore crowned with the great glory that is bestowed upon mankind, who in their wanderings away from God, in the wilderness densities of human life, have not realized the fullness of His love for so long, and in their great hunger, when the great onrush of His love comes again into full-orbed splendor in their life, the luminosity thereof is the return of the prodigal one to the arms of the Father. Feel now then your own God-presence arms pressed around you. Feel the love in the name of holy justice that now would ensconce you on high and lift you to the very heart of heaven, to enthrone you in your rightful place, where dominion could be given you in the holy name of justice, and justly so. Know then, precious ones, that it is only divine justice in action that must defer the fullness of your salvation until you have merited it by divine grace, even as Jesus did. Do you know, precious ones, the long history of His own struggles? I think not. And I shall not reveal that history, for it would, it seems to me, serve no useful end this night in connection with this address. Perhaps in some future time it may be the desire of heaven, of the karmic board, or others of the great cosmic hosts to release some segments of the struggles occurring in His own embodiments before He gained His victory. It might, however, encourage you, I feel, to tell you that struggles did exist, and that Jesus in past embodiments also was an overcomer, offering Himself unto God until He achieved the state of avatar and descended in that last embodiment, requiring so little to manifest the fullness of His perfection. For you will recall how that He said, "Go unto Herod and tell that fox that I cast out devils today, and that the third day I shall be perfected." Therefore the manifest perfection of the Christ was self-evident to His disciples, and yet the night when He was seized and taken, they themselves in their human vacillation were troubled and affrighted and scattered as sheep without a shepherd. The tenderness of the Father's love drew them together once again, and so the flame of Christianity spread both from the east unto the west as a great blazing sun. And the triumph of Israel, the messianic concept, was delivered unto man. And today, as I told you when I came tonight, it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of your own messiahship. Therefore, the manifest perfection of the Christ was self-evident to His disciples, and yet the night when He was seized and taken, They themselves, in their human vacillation, were troubled and affrighted and scattered as sheep without a shepherd. The tenderness of the Father's love drew them together once again, and so the flame of Christianity spread both from the east unto the west as a great blazing sun. And the triumph of Israel, the messianic concept, was delivered unto man. And today, as I told you when I came tonight, it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of your own messiahship, that you might recognize that God has desired to bring not only one son to captivity, being captivated by the heart of God's own purity, but many. And therefore he has called you. But will ye choose to accept his justice? I know that one day ye will. But be it today, then the hierarchy may rejoice with greater rejoicing. For we need and require in this day many sons of light to reinforce the freedom flame and to produce the sustaining radiance in this octave which the great law requires in order to ascend the earth into its own era of infinite God freedom. As the light of the eternal presence bursts forth in a new dawn, the resurrection purposes become self-evident. I, Portia, call now to my beloved consort Saint Germain to join me here and pour forth his radiance and the power of his flame, that the mounting crescendo of freedom may become an anthem of praise for all nations, that all nations may pass around the mountain of peace, circumnavigating the mountain and rising in the ascending spiral until achievement is won and the victory of the triumphant resurrection of man and nature is accomplished. Elemental life is free, and the planet rejoiceth, shaken then as a reed in the wind. The solar winds of the divine radiance flowing from Helios and Vesta will confer upon this earth the garlands that make of the earth a bride adorned to meet her heavenly consort. O resurrection spirit, thou mighty tenderness of God's flame, flowing through the heart of Mother Nature and through the entire earth, pour forth this night thy radiance, that with the flowing and inflowing of the dawn, justice and peace may rest upon the earth as a snow-white mantle of Christ's purity. In his holy name, for and on behalf of the Karmic Board, I give to each one of you here a gift of my love. It is really all that I have, for I have given all else away. Thank you, and good evening.